Well, hi everybody, and thanks so much for letting us speak today. Today we're just going to talk a little bit about tabletop role-playing games for social growth. But before we get started, let's introduce ourselves. Lucian has already done a lovely introduction, so I'll skip through mine a little bit. But I'm either Dr. Susanna, Emery, or Susie, and I'm a game and narrative designer and lecturer at University of South Australia. I live and work on the unceded lands of the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains. Here I head up the games design and production major, and my research interests are in games and digital media for education and social change. I'm passionate about increasing diversity in both the games and the tech industry, and I'm an International Women in Games ambassador. And here with me today is my amazing colleague, Michele.
Thanks, Susie. So I'm Dr. Michele Jarldorn, and I'm a lecturer in social work at the Uni of South Australia, and I also live on unceded Kaurna territory. I'm the Social Work Honours Program Director. I teach a course on mental health and substance use, and I'm also a long-term volunteer grant writer and advocate for formerly incarcerated women in South Australia. And check out the piece that Susie and I wrote about a tech project that we're working on together in the reference list. That's a bit of a plug. Thanks.
Thanks, Michele. So here today, we want to talk to you about and share our white paper that was recently published regarding TTRPGs for social growth. And it was developed together with Minds at Play, who are an Australian disability service provider that use TTRPGs like D&D to encourage neurodivergent people and those with disabilities to engage in social settings and communication skills. When describing their work, Minds at Play state themselves that they are dedicated to fostering communication and social interaction through imagination and play. Minds at Play contacted us at the uni as they were kind of like they were really sure that their programs were having positive outcomes for their players with anecdotal reports, but they wanted to know if there was any academic research out there that kind of supported that work that they were doing. So today we'll discuss a bit of an overview of the white paper, but there's a link to the full paper there if you do want to read it or have a look later as well.
Okay, so to explore the idea, we first needed to actually determine what we were looking for or what was meant by social growth. So I went to the material around Pierre Bourdieu, and who argued that capital isn't just material possessions, but that there's a social aspect that consists of the connections that we have with others. So his work's most often applied to the sense of belonging in understanding in tertiary education. So we propose that amassing social, cultural and symbolic capital through the growth of personal networks by playing cooperative games enables and facilitates the conditions for individuals to create their own social power. But to achieve social power, people need to be able to interact and collaborate with others socially, something that can be really difficult for neurodiverse individuals who often experience ableism in social settings where they're not understood or where there's resistance to accept their distinct ways of being. So social growth is an outcome of the development of an individual's ability to interact with others and can be achieved by increasing positive social experiences. So we argue that social growth doesn't necessarily require conformity to mainstream social expectations, but that social growth should be a two-way arrangement where, rather than the onus being placed upon neurodiverse people to fit into the mainstream, that instead neurotypical people do more to understand and welcome the differences as a way to enhance their own social growth. So for my discipline in social work, inclusivity is a real key practice in embracing diversity and difference. And so I like to take a really inclusive approach through supporting neurotypical people to broaden their own social empathy, which in turn will support their social growth.
So, with all of this in mind, our quest was to determine if the social growth of individuals is achievable through TTRPGs and how social growth as an outcome is measured. But this was not going to be an easy quest. We took on this quest despite the warning of the dragons, which in our case was the problematic nature of some of the existing research in the area, where we found that the language and therapies used on neurodivergent people often paints them as being lesser than and therefore needing to conform to neurotypical behaviors, and that's only achieved through the interventions of professionals. As a neurodivergent person engaging with this literature, I can confirm that it is not fun to read about key aspects of your being as less than. So, with the destination in mind, we started to think about who was going and how we could prepare to get there. Just like in many TTRPG campaigns, our research began with our group initially connecting in a digital tavern, or what we sometimes call Zoom, and introducing ourselves to each other. The core rulebook for the most recent full version of D&D, 5th edition, recommends that players set out in parties with around 3 to 5 players to result in the best level of in-game balance. Our research team decided to follow this rule, undertaking our research in a group of 5, which we called our research party. The research party for the project contained a variety of backgrounds and experiences with both TTRPGs and academia, including as players and GMs. Our party members also had members who are neurodivergent from varied socioeconomic groups and ages, the LGBTQI+ community, and academic areas of game design, social work, and STEM. For us, ensuring a diverse research party was one of the most important parts of our research process. And the lead rules designer on D&D 5th edition, Jeremy Crawford, explains in this quote here that we're stronger when we're different. We're stronger with our differences, with our variations, with our unique human things that make us who we are. We make a stronger group. Yeah, I love that. The group is powerful because of its diversity.
So our diverse research party returned to the literature, and we followed the Skin O'Malley's approach, but used the paper by Angela Duvnak and her colleagues, which was a scoping review. And we did that to highlight the importance of maintaining a broad approach to defining concepts and search terms when searching for the sources. So following the advice of Duvnak and colleagues, each member of our research team undertook their own individual search processes using a variety of keywords, including tabletop, social, autism, RPGs, autistic, therapy, health, neurodivergent or neurodiverse, conflict resolution, RPGs, TTRPGs, role-playing. So you can see we went quite broad because there actually wasn't a lot to be found. So we noted that significant amounts of the literature didn't use the term TTRPG when referring to the games used, but rather referred to the specific game system, such as D&D, in their writing.
And being that D&D made up by far the majority of RPG search queries on Google relating to TTRPGs in 2021, our research team decided to include some of the popular TTRPG game names. So we did search for D&D, also Call of Cthulhu, Shadowrun, Starfinder, and Pathfinder in our search terms, just to kind of make sure we'd broaden that out as well. In undertaking the searches, the research team utilized their individual preferred search process. So some people used academic databases, but we also looked at grey literature to make sure that we included perspectives and insights from the field. So things from organizations like Minds at Play, Game Masters blogs, and social work professionals that suggested using D&D as a tool. We kind of went everywhere and looked at everything. We searched everywhere. So what did we find on our journey? Well, we saw a lot, but here are some of the most interesting things that we saw.
So Adams suggested that playing TTRPGs can help individuals maintain friendships and strong relationships, and that went past playing the game to outside the game as well. And I think that's quite important at a time when mental distress is increasing and especially for neurodiverse people, but the distress that can actually be reduced when the people feel a sense of belonging. So Adams attributes this to the way that D&D players work as a group on a campaign, how that provides a sense of camaraderie and led to experiencing what can be described as a democratic participation through their membership of a gaming community. So a lovely quote from Adams says that role-playing games function as remarkable sites for social engagement and cognitive health benefits. Motivations to play are situated in the game's ability to utilise communication as a tool, to enact democracy, enhance relationships, participate in spontaneity, and perform morality. So although playing online isn't for everybody, we should never expect that there can possibly be one type of way to do anything. So after all, diverse populations and communities are by their very nature diverse. So we found a paper by a fellow called Scriven who actually analysed social media Reddit posts and found that 1 in 5 people actually did prefer to play these games online. And another author wrote about Minecraft, playing that online and suggesting that online gaming communities have the potential to bring together neurodivergent and neurotypical people together in collaborative and imaginative ways. So
And
we also,
sorry,
sorry, Suze, I was
no,
going to
sorry.
say, and we found that role playing can be particularly positive for adolescent and vulnerable service users, and suggest that D&D may be a useful tool to engage those who might be reluctant to engage in a service otherwise. In the Abbott and colleagues study from 2022, they interviewed adults who'd played D&D as an intervention for people experiencing social anxiety and with a history of trauma, anxiety, and depression. The participants told them that playing D&D was a better experience than group therapy, as there wasn't a focus on them talking about their feelings. Players reported having increased confidence, that they'd learned a little about managing confrontation, in that they could do it through their character, and experience being able to move past the fear of making mistakes. There was also some evidence that the skills trialed and learned from playing were transferable into the real world.
And just going back to games in general, research demonstrates that by their very nature, games like TTRPGs have the ability to promote empathy and respect for perspectives different to those that we experience every day. Games have a unique ability to teach players how aspects of reality work, how to understand yourself and the action of others, and games academic Costa says how to imagine. And Ian Bogost, who's a digital games kind of person, but also does some stuff in board game space, used the term procedural rhetoric to describe how the systems, such as the rules and processes contained within a game, can help promote specific ideologies to their player. Earlier, we spoke about how D&D groups are most powerful when they contain a diverse set of character archetypes. In order to complete a campaign in D&D, a variety of attributes such as charisma, strength, and dexterity are used in different ways to address challenges. And you all know this, but it's extremely valuable to see all of those attributes in use. Each character created has a diverse set of these skills, and as we play, we kind of see how each of those skills and knowledges and understanding can be useful in different ways. So in this way, a core part of the gameplay of D&D works to create a procedural rhetoric that highlights to players the ideology of how all of those with different skills and backgrounds and ways of approaching things might have their own perspectives, and that might save the day. Role playing is a core part of gameplay undertaken by those playing TTRPGs, and research shows it's also an effective and recognized process undertaken in therapy and human service education settings to help individuals practice and strengthen skills in a low risk environment.
So Batson and Shaw talked about role-playing games as being a way to facilitate what they called perspective taking. And perspective taking is acknowledged as an important source of creating human empathy. Empathy is often explored concept in neurodivergent and neurotypical communication, and research by Milton into the disconnection between autistic and non-autistic people highlighted something called the double empathy problem, which suggested that neurotypical people struggle to empathise with autistic people and vice versa, because of the differences in the ways that neurotypical and autistic people experience the world.
In their research, Valoranzo Jones explored the creation of a homebrew campaign for D&D that worked together with neurodivergent players to create gameplay elements and characters who represented neurodivergence within the game. Homebrew campaigns are a pretty accessible way that GMs can combine the existing rules and processes of TTRPGs together with additions and modifications that utilize the power of procedural rhetoric in their campaigns. Valoranzo Jones suggests creating both neurotypical and neurodivergent characters and players, including them in games, but warns that they need to be created by those with lived experience. because this facilitates players' insights and understanding of alternate perspectives, experiences, and points of view from those who really understand them. The narrative of many D&D campaigns revolve around a famous story structure called the hero's journey. The final stage of the hero's journey is called the return of the elixir, where the hero returns from the quest with something that can help others in the community. Our research party returned from our journey with some useful information to help guide future parties who travel along the path we started journeying down, or for those research parties undertaking different journeys into the same lands.
So we found positive research on the use of tabletop role-playing games in therapeutic and psychological areas and to promote positive mental health and well-being. However, there was a clear research gap in the use of tabletop role-playing games for social growth. Overall, we suggested that there would be significant merit to pursuing further research and investigation in the area. When we undertook the review, we noticed that the academic literature generally approached the topic of tabletop role-playing games from the viewpoint of therapists engaging in D&D as a way to engage their clients in therapeutic outcomes. There was very little data in regard to players reporting on their own experiences, and so we suggest that further research in this area should be really careful to include a focus on player voices as well as that of the facilitator. We also noted that the language used in academic articles discussing neurodivergent groups was generally focused on the medical model, utilising terms such as with autism and ASD. Research by Fatima Patel notes how the language used to communicate about autism can perpetuate ableist ideologies. So terms such as these may work to further marginalise neurodivergent players and researchers from engaging with the research in this area. To result in research that is inclusive of a variety of players, future investigation and research in this area should ensure that researchers engage with and use an anti-ableist stance and make intentional choices about the language that they use. And such research should ensure that it includes a variety of perspectives, including from neurodivergent players and GMs.
In our methodology, we noted that the D&D system, generally 5th edition, was overwhelmingly referred to in the academic literature with very little mention of other TTRPG systems. While that might be due to the popularity and availability of D&D, in this research, there's a lack of research into the game itself and what it contributes to those. And research by Garcia identifies that D&D does actually have some problematic history regarding gender and race that we should acknowledge. And even where some improvements have been made regarding this, there are still some elements present in D&D that could promote ableist perspectives, and as such might prove detrimental to promoting positive social growth. So that's important to be considered. And just considering alternative TTRPG systems or homebrew changes or things like that that may better suit a specific campaign and its circumstances need to be investigated. And where D&D is the preference for use, however, there are many who are adapting or modifying the system in order to better suit their goals, such as Game to Grow and Minds at Play. And even the new Open D&D stuff seems like it's going to be a lot more inclusive, which is really good to see. Moving forward and to address some of the considerations outlined here, we suggest further research into this area explores the way in systems such as Minds at Play modifications of 5e navigate and fight some of those challenges. And really, again, looking forward to seeing what those new changes will be. There's much to be learned strengthening social growth from the way that campaigns such as this are created and delivered. And only with diverse research parties can these challenges truly be explored. So overall, despite a gap in the area, the research does suggest that there's much potential for TTRPGs to promote social growth. Further research into the area should ensure it is inclusive and diverse and should include a variety of perspectives and a variety of TTRPG systems or homebrew elements.
And just to kind of wrap it up, Susie and I are tinkering around with this idea of radical co-design and developing it up as a theory. And what it actually means is that when we co-design with people, we actually embody and live the politics of that group. So, it's actually about not just doing co-design with, but actually, really taking a political stance with that too.